Hello, my name is Dr. Benjamin Klein. I am professor of speech and communication at Western New Mexico University, and I will be your professor for COMM-1130, 1130, COMM, I don't know, 1130, however you like to say it is fine. I'm going to be your professor for that, and we're going to talk a little bit about our online course. I want to start out by saying that teaching online is different, and taking a public speaking class online is going to be very different than probably any other online course that you've taken, and certainly different than we would do in a face-to-face public speaking course. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that you've made a decision to make your life much more difficult by taking this online. And I know that most of you are aware of that. When you decided I'm going to take this class online, you were like, and I know this is going to be harder than if I took it face-to-face, but there are all kinds of things going on in my life that make this necessary. And if that's the case, if there's all kinds of things in your life that make it necessary for you to take this class online, I am glad that I'm here for you to do it. But I am going to point out it's going to be hard. This is going to be difficult because you're taking this class online. So that means that you don't have the audience for your speeches already provided. You're going to have to go out in your community and find an audience for every speech. There was a little while when we were first trying to figure out how to work under COVID, where I was letting people kind of not always give their speeches in front of audiences. And ultimately, that wasn't public speaking. And ultimately, eventually, that would have affected our accreditation. We can't have a university where people are taking public speaking and then just giving their speech to a computer. That's awful. So that's not the way you're going to do it. You're going to have to find an audience, which is going to be really difficult. You're going to have to find unique and interesting ways to record that. You're probably going to need more equipment than a normal student would have, because you're going to have to probably have your presentation up on one screen and then something else recording you, your audience, and the visual aid presentation. This is going to be a struggle, and that's okay. That's okay, because you can do it. Most people who take this class do pass. We have a much higher failure rate in the public speaking class, and it almost always is for one reason. And that reason is that people have trouble finding an audience. People have trouble finding a group of people who can be to you or get to you and who you can present on. They have trouble finding a space that's appropriate for presenting, and they have trouble getting themselves on camera, because it's so important that you walk around when you're giving a public speech, that you don't stand behind a podium. So they need a space where they can walk. This is all a struggle for people who take public speaking online. But like I said, you can do it. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. So let's go ahead, and we're just going to get into the class right now, and we're going to talk about what we will do in our public speaking class. I'm going to point out some things to you, and you can go through them. So anyway, this is our assignment. You won't see this stuff over here. But you'll see this stuff. Actually, I could go ahead and do student view, and then it'll look exactly like you'll see it. Well, now it has this pink thing at the bottom. Okay, there's no way I can make it exactly like you'll see it, but this is kind of the thing. So you are in COMM-1130, section 70, all online courses. I don't know if you care about this or want to know at WNMU. The section starts with a 7. Just kind of an interesting thing, right? So anyway, it's not an important thing. For spring of 2022. This is the web page for it. There's a lot of information right here on the front when you first come in, when you first come to the home page. A lot of information right here on the front. There is my name. Benjamin J. Klein, PhD. You can call me lots of different things. You can call me Dr. Klein. You can call me Dr. Benji. You can just call me Benji. Any of those are fine. I don't like to be called Ben, and I get a little, if people call me Mr. Klein. So I have a PhD, so don't call me Mr. Klein. If we want to be formal, then call me Dr. Klein. If you want to be informal, call me Benji. Professor Klein or Professor Benji doesn't bother me. My real name is Benjamin, but I call myself Benji when I'm talking to myself, and I do talk to myself a lot. My office is in 206 Bowden. So that is, if you go to Light Hall, which is where we're supposed to show movies, hopefully we do that again soon. If you go to Light Hall and you and then you go one building further east. If you do that, that is Bowden Hall, and I'm in 206. Right now, this is what I'm saying. My office hours are this semester. This is subject to change. I may have a different office hour as we go through. And that's okay. I have the right to do that. We're trying to figure it out right now. Right now, I'm not planning on having any office hours on Friday, but otherwise and here's the thing, I'm here a lot more often than that. And even if I'm not here, I don't even put my office phone on my syllabus on my webpage anymore. I just put my cell phone. You can call me and you can text me, and I'm perfectly capable of not answering the phone if I'm busy doing something else. So you can call me, and if I hit ignore, it's not because I dislike you, it's because I'm busy. But you can call, you can text. But here's the deal about that. Sometimes I might not answer your call or text until my office hours. Now that doesn't happen very often. A lot of times I respond immediately, or there might be something in between. In a lot of ways, it's very convenient that nowadays we can contact our professors anytime, any place, but that also means that as a professor, I need to put up some boundaries and say, it's anytime, any place, but if I don't have time or it's not an appropriate place right now, I have every right to just wait until office hours like I would have done when I was in college in the late 90s. So that's how, if I send an email to my professor, an email did exist then, there would be no expectation that they would read it until they got to their office hours. And so I think that's a reasonable thing. If I called my professor, there'd be no expectation that they would get the message until they got to their office hours. I think that we can go back to that. No, I'm not going to do that in real life. In real life, if I see a text, I'm probably going to respond. So here's kind of the deal about that. If for some reason I don't respond, because sometimes it happens, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but it happens to me. Sometimes I get a text and I'm like, oh, I need to respond to that. But right now I'm eating dinner with my family, or right now I'm in church or whatever. I'll get to it after church. I'll get to it after dinner. And then I space it out. So here's kind of my deal. If I don't respond within 2 weekdays, I mean, sometimes I'll take a whole weekend and not respond to texts and do that really intentionally for my own sanity. But if I don't respond to texts for a full 2 weekdays, I want you to try again. Give me a call or text again. And generally, I feel awful after that. I feel terrible, but I'll get back to you. The second thing is my email. And basically, my email response time is probably slower than my text response time or call response time. You can call me. Just students don't, but you sure can. But anyway, my email response time is about the same, but it's different, right? One of the things that we'll talk about towards the end of this semester is the way different media function to help us communicate in different ways. That's really more of a thing that we focus on in our media writing class here at WNMU. But at the end of the course, I kind of give you a little bit of that. So here's the thing, email is different than texting, right? So if you're going to ask me something and like, okay, if you're going to say, I don't know, is it okay? Is this piece of software that I want to use for my speech is an appropriate way to record it? And I can answer yes or no, right? That's a good thing for a text. If you're going to come in and say, you know, I've been watching your videos, I've been reading the book, and I don't really understand the difference between an exordium and an introduction. This is just not something I really get. I don't even quite understand what an exordium is. That's more of an email question or a phone call question, right? Where we can actually, phone calls would probably be best for that, but an email is way better, where I can type something up and work on it because it's a much more advanced thing. So there's some required items for the class. Hopefully this all works. There's 2 textbooks. Now, hopefully, as you were going through this, you scheduled your class and you scheduled it on something like this, right? You scheduled it on something like this, on this, this is where you looked it up, where you got the CRN number. And so you would have seen right away when you signed up for this class, textbook information, and would have taken you to the bookstore, and you would have seen that we have two textbooks. This is the Essential Guide to Rhetoric, is our cheaper one. It says Essen Guide to Rhetoric. Essen is the German word for to eat, but don't be eating your textbooks. Anyway, so those are our textbooks and Inviting Transformation. You really need, you'll end up reading, I think, every page in this. And I think there's like 2 chapters we end up skipping in this. So you really do need both the books, and you're going to need those books in order to pass the quizzes. So we'll get to that. You also need a computer with internet capability adequate, an internet capacity adequate to upload speeches. You have to be able to do that. You're not allowed to say, oh, well, I can't do that. No, you're taking an online course. You have to have good internet and a good computer to do that. If you don't, you really need to find a way to take the course face-to-face. And you need a device that can digitally record your speeches. You know what? I mean, when I came to WNMU, I came here in 2010, so 11 years ago, I guess. And so then it was another year after that. So about 10 years ago, we started doing online public speaking. And almost no student had anything that could really record an online speech in adequate quality to grade it. And this was a huge reason people failed the online class. But nowadays, most of us, my phone's not awesome, but it can record a speech well enough for everybody to say. I'm totally fine with you using that. And so, yeah, you can use your phones, you can use whatever, but you're going to have to record your speeches in front of an audience and upload them. Okay, so let's see. That's probably all the things you need. So those are our required items. I have a couple of other little things on here. One cool thing that I'd like you to use is if you click on modules, it'll take you to this. And this shows you the order in which to do everything to get the best information out of this class. So if you really want to learn everything, like if you just want to read the book and take the quizzes, you'll do okay. But if you go through the modules, you can also see like videos I've made and stuff like that sometimes. And if you watch these videos, you'll get a lot further than just reading the book, I think. Maybe that's arrogant of me. I'm just like, you know, you watch me, it's better than reading these books. But I think you'll get more, at least you'll get it again and in a different way. So yeah, I think that's going on. So the modules are on there. You can use that. Kind of the list of assignments. So here's the assignments. At least every week, and at the beginning, it's going to be a couple times a week. You're going to have a lot of quizzes to take. And the purpose of the quizzes is not to make you fail. The purpose of the quizzes is not to really even test your ability as a public speaker, the purpose of your quizzes is to make sure that you're actually doing the reading. And if you're actually doing the reading, my goal is, oh, this is in the wrong place. My goal is if you're actually doing the reading, you should, no, I see how it is. If you're actually doing the reading, you should, without any serious issues, pass this class. Okay, so you've got this. I know, show by type, I'm gonna do that. So that's what I'm thinking of it. So anyway, you'll also give 3 speeches. Your first speech is February 24th. I don't know how you are, but I'm always like, well, that's not till next month. And then suddenly it's next month. So your first speech is February 24th. That is your show and tell speech. You don't have to turn in any kind of paper or anything like that. Just go ahead and quickly talk about it. You have to bring in one item that exemplifies one of your personal moral values. So I'll just do this. Here is my R2-D2, right? This is my R2-D2. And R2-D2 in Star Wars exemplifies, to me, humor, being able to approach life with a certain amount of humor, and preparedness. He's always able to fix things. He's always ready for things that go wrong. So I could choose either one or maybe both. I prefer you just do one personal value, but you could choose either one and of those values, and I could give a speech on that. So find an object that symbolizes your personal values. Or maybe I could do a speech on my sunglasses. And I could talk about how sunglasses are about taking care of your eyes. And I could say, well, health is a really important moral value to me. I could also talk about frugality. Frugality is a really important moral value to me, for real. I try and do everything as cheap as I possibly can. And I usually buy my glasses at Dollar Tree for that reason. And so I could talk about that, how Dollar Tree is the best place to get your sunglasses because they're $1. And even if you go to Dollar General or Family Dollar, sunglasses are like $8. And people who buy Oakleys and stuff like that are foolish, but you know what? It's your life. So anyway, so those are the types of things, you can do something that represents your moral values. Then you do some research on the value itself. It doesn't have to be like really difficult research, we need to go into depth, but just do some things. Look at what some philosophers have said about this value. Look at what some scholars have written. Look at what some, at least, what Google says about frugality as a moral value and stuff like that. And you prepare a 3 to 5 minute speech about the item. Probably, I'm pretty much more comfortable with you hanging at the 3 than at the 5. It should be short. That's my point. You practice your speech over and over and over to make sure you stay in the time limit, and you practice your speech over and over and over to make sure it's extemporaneous. Extemporaneous is a word that you'll learn as you go through this class. It's a really important word. What extemporaneous means is that you do not have your speech memorized. You are not reading your speech, but you're also not just coming up with your speech off the cuff. All right. You have notes that you don't read, but 2 or 3 words on a piece of paper to help you remember. You have some things memorized, maybe any quotes that you have that you want to use, you can read those. That's okay. And the rest kind of comes in time. That's an extemporaneous speech. And you'll learn as you go through this class that the best speeches are extemporaneous speeches. You have to record your speech in front of a live audience. I want to make that super, super clear. You have to record your speech in front of a live audience. If you, for some reason, are in a situation where you cannot record, you cannot have a live audience, You cannot take a public speaking class. We have other options. You can take small group communication and you can take media writing. Both of those count for your general studies here, and you don't have to have a live audience for those. If you have, some kind of, if you're immunocompromised or something like that, you just can't be in front of people, then this isn't the class for you. Okay, and so I want you to drop it, not because I don't love you, not because I won't accommodate you. I will accommodate you for all kinds of accommodations, but just like, if you have a writing class and you can't physically write, you're gonna have to find a way to do it because things have to be written for that class. It's just kind of a thing. If you're going to take a literature class, you're going to have to find a way to read the books. That's the same here. Public speaking is a radically different thing than what I'm doing now, which is mediated communication. It's radically different. And so you have to give a speech in front of an audience. It has to be at least 5 people in the audience. And I have to be able to see you and your audience while you're presenting it. So this is some really important stuff. And I want this to be really clear from the beginning that if there's going to be any issue with you getting an audience for your speeches, you need to take a different class. Okay. If you're like, well, I just moved to this area, I can't find 5 people, then you're going to have to take a different class. And you're like, well, I just moved to this area and I'm an education major, so I have to take public speaking. If you're what is it? Language arts. If you're going to do language arts instructions, you have to take public speaking. One of the others isn't that option. Okay, guess what you've got to do then? You got to make some friends really quick who can come over and watch your speech. And if you can't do that, you can't pass this class. And I just want to be super clear about that because I hate it that this is the reason that most people fail the online course. The reason most people fail the online course is they just can't find an audience for their speech. And I would rather you just took a different course if that's going to be the case. Either take public speaking face-to-face if you're here in town, take public speaking face-to-face at another university and transfer those credits in. I hate to even say that. If you're out of town, but I'd rather you did that than fail this class because you can't find an audience. So I just want to be super clear about that. So anyway, in that speech, you'll tell people who you are, tell them what your audience is, name the personal value which characterizes the item, give a definition for that value, tell a story explaining why that item represents that value, and forge strong links for your audience. There's some things that you need to do here. And if you can do all that, this is the rubric according to which it'll be graded. And you can see that the extent to which you're able to hold an audience's attention is a huge part of your grade. It's a full third of the grade. So if you can't do that, you're going to need to take a different course. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to make that any more clear. You cannot take this class if you can't find an audience. Okay, so that's one. Another second big speech, besides all the quizzes, is your policy speech. In the policy speech, I want you to look for a policy. Now, this policy could be a law. Most students choose a law as the policy that they want to use. For this student, this could be a law, this could be a, what else could it be? Could be like a university policy. It could be the policy I just talked about, that you have to find an audience for online public speaking. That's a policy. You would have to prove that you can really do public speaking, and when it's mediated, which you can't. That's a different definition. So anyway, yeah, so you would have, that could be a policy. You could do any kind of policy, but a policy that you think needs to be changed. So like if there's a policy that you think is really great the way it is, that's not what I'm talking about. A policy that you think needs to be changed. And so you go through and you do research on that policy. Now, all policies exist for a reason. And the reason is, it exists. And if you try and change a policy, you need to make certain that the reason that policy exists is mitigated. We could take one of my example policies here, right? That WNMU requires out-of-town freshmen to live on campus, unless you're a 100% online class. Until you get a certain number of hours in, you have to live on campus. If you live with your parents here in town, you can continue to live with your parents. Now, why is that? Well, it wasn't always the policy, and the university loses tons of money on that policy. We do not make money on you living in the residence halls. We lose money. But we've done research, and that research has shown that students who live on campus complete. They graduate. Students who live off campus do not. If you can get somebody to live on campus for 2 years, they will graduate. If a person doesn't live on campus for 2 years, they won't graduate. So yeah, that's kind of a thing with that. So that's the reason we have it. So you want to change that policy. What are you going to do to mitigate that situation? So that's kind of an example. Also, every policy has costs. And so if we're going to change the policy, how are we going to deal with those costs? For this speech, you're going to have to do a PechaKucha. A PechaKucha involves 20 slides, 20 seconds each, auto forward. And you'll learn more about PechaKuchas before the speech. This will be after midterm. You'll be halfway through the class before you have to do the speech. So you'll know what a PechaKucha is by then, I hope. And you have to record it in front of a live audience. And this is going to be really hard on this one, because first of all, I need to see you. I need to see your audience. I need to see you moving around the room that you're in, interacting with your audience, with your nonverbal communication, and responding to their nonverbal communication. I need to see all that. And I need to see, I need to see your visual aid in this case. So some students have had a struggle here, because I need to see their PechaKucha, which is particular kind of PowerPoint. So you're going to need a screen to put that on and something recording you. And this can be a struggle for students. And I'm going to tell you right now, I just want to be really clear, because I hate failing people because they just don't understand when they take the class what's required of them. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're not hard workers. It's just they don't seem to understand when they take the class that certain things are going to be required. One of the things that's going to be required is the ability to do this. So if you think I don't have a space where I can put things up on a screen or something like that, here's the situation. You need to find another way to take this class. You either need to take not public speaking, or you need to take public speaking not online. There's still plenty of seats that are not on if you're here on campus. And if you absolutely have to take public speaking and you absolutely have to take it online, then you absolutely have to find a way to do this. Okay. I don't want to be rude or mean or upsetting regarding any of that, but that's just kind of a reality. Okay. And there's also kind of rules for how to cite sources. And there's the rubric. You can see that 1/4 of the grade is your audience. So I want to make that just really clear. The ability, if you do everything perfect, which almost nobody ever does, and you don't have a good audience that's attentive and paying attention, you get the best you can do as a C. If you do everything perfect, which you won't, and then you don't have an audience, the best you can do as a C. So I really want to make it clear that you need an audience. And I'm trying to make that as clear as I can here at the beginning, because otherwise this is just going to be an issue, and I'm sorry about it. Okay. I'm just pushing this really hard because I failed a third of my online class last semester. And the reason was that they couldn't find an audience. And that's the way it is. And it breaks my heart to take your money and then not give you a class, not give you the credit you need. I don't take your money. The university takes your money. I get like 2% of what you, I think that's what we figured it out one time. I get about 2% of what a class pays goes to the professor. So anyway, yeah. So then your last assignment is your teaching speech. This is going to require a visual aid too, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Petakucha. And it's going to be kind of the same in the teaching speech. What I want you to do is I want you to think about, because I kind of take what's called a civil discourse approach to this class. What I want you to do is I want you to think about what are some ways in which people need to know something to be good citizens. And I'm using citizen broadly. I know that probably some of you taking this class are not citizens of the United States. You're citizens of your own country, or maybe what the stuff you want to talk about. This is just like, if you're going to live around here, you should probably know some things. So I give some examples like, how to register to vote, how to become a legal citizen, how to find appropriate case law. Sometimes, people are like, well, is this really legal? Well, how do you find out if something's really legal without hiring a lawyer? This is basic knowledge that a person needs to have. How do you get on the city council agenda? There's something you want to say. How do you do that? How do you run for office in New Mexico? If you're in New Mexico, maybe you're in Washington. For some reason, we have a lot of students in Washington. I don't know why. But anyway, just the way things work out, things kind of come up into place. So maybe if you're from Washington and you're like, well, this is the obvious reason people in Washington take this class, use your university, I'll be like, oh, so send me a message. I'd be curious to know. So anyway, we have a lot of students from Washington. So maybe, how do you run for office in Washington? All of these are really great things. It could be about how to do something, informing us about something, or helping us understand something. Any of those are fine. You have to have 5 sources. By the time you take this, you'll know how to do research, I hope, by the time you get to this last speech of the class. And so, yeah, and again, you have to have an audience, and they have to be on camera. So I just want to make all of that super clear before we go in. There's other things that you can find here. I have policies regarding almost everything. Some of it's like really like attendance. This is an online class. Attendance is not so much a thing, but I have rules. You got to access Canvas fairly often. You get on a couple times a week, we should be good. Access this class through Canvas. Make sure you get your work done. Policy on late work, especially in the online class, I don't accept late work. I just don't. If you decide you have to turn in something late, I decide that you just can't do it. In the face-to-face class, sometimes we'll have things come up like a person gets sick or something like that. Kind of have to let things go a little late if have to keep going. But on the online course, I would just say maybe if you really are sick and it wouldn't be safe for you to have an audience or something like that. Maybe we can talk about something. But here's my other thing as far as late work goes. If somehow you manage to grind an exception out of me, the assignment will not go into Canvas until final grades are posted to the registrar, and that means you'll never see it. If somehow you get me to accept something like I try and grade on a schedule, and it doesn't always work out for me, but I try and grade on a schedule. And if you don't get something in on time, that throws off my schedule. And so I'm just not going to grade it until after the class is closed. And maybe you don't like that, and I don't either. So let's save ourselves the trouble and just get everything in on time. So that's the class for the most part. You know, you can send me an email if you have any further questions about the class. You can give me a call. You can text me if you have any further questions about the class. You can come to my office hours if you live in Silver. If you don't, or Grant County, nobody. Yeah, most students don't actually live in Silver if they're taking this class online, but they do live in Grant County. Yeah, you can get up here. You can get up here. You might live in Lordsburg, but you can get up here and talk to me sometime during my office hours if you want. If I was going to drive from Lordsburg to meet at office hours, give me a call first, because sometimes like those are my office hours, but sometimes like life happens and I get away. But so yeah, if you're coming from a long ways, give me a call. But otherwise, I think that's the course. Hopefully we can have a really good time in it. I'm looking forward to, you know, when I get that first speech, those first show and tell speeches, most of them just like, oh, I come to love you. So hopefully that will happen here. I'm excited about this new semester. I'm excited about helping you take this class online. And I'll be excited to hear your speeches. So have a great day, have a great semester, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.